Hello, I'm Dr. Scott Wadier.
And I'm Tommy Welling, and you're listening to the Fasting for Life podcast.
This podcast is about using fasting as a tool to regain your health, achieve ultimate wellness, and live the life you truly deserve.
Each episode is a short conversation on a single topic with immediate actionable steps. We cover everything from fat loss and health and wellness to the science of lifestyle design.
We started Fasting for Life because of how fasting has transformed our lives, and we hope to share the tools that we have learned along the way. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fasting for Life podcast. My name is Dr. Scott Wadier, and I'm here, as always, with my good friend and colleague, Tommy Welling. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Fantastic, my friend. Excited for today's episode and conversation. We're going to talk about how your circadian rhythm impacts metabolic health, how our internal clocks, set mostly by natural light, influence our glucose and insulin systems, and why a regular schedule combined with your fasting lifestyle can improve your weight loss, your health, your metabolism, and all those great things that we can get out of adopting a fasting lifestyle. So if you are new to the podcast, welcome in. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for giving us a shot. If you want to know more about Tommy's journey, my journey with fasting, how it's transformed our lives, and why we now coach and teach and have the resources and the challenges and all the things around a fasting lifestyle, episode 0 and episode 1 will give you some insight into our journey and why we do what we do week in and week out, bringing you a podcast episode. And excited to have you with us on this fasting journey. If you're a long-term listener, a fasting OG, appreciate you continuing to be on this journey with us. Your likes, your downloads, your rates, your reviews, your shares, subscribes, all those things that I don't fully understand. Those help tell the podcast world that we're real and we're delivering value week in and week out. So happy to be on the fasting lifestyle journey with you. So Tommy, let's talk a little bit about circadian rhythm and its impacts on metabolic health. So how our internal clock, our internal biology, influences our glucose and insulin systems.
Okay. So when I think about sleep and, as part of my journey, there was a long period of time where I just didn't worry about sleep. And it's not that I hadn't heard it 100 times that it had a lot to do with the rest of the body and how I was, processing fuel and muscle building, fat burning, brain health, all of these kind of things. I had heard all of those things so many times, but I think it was probably a lot had to do with being locked into a calories in, calories out kind of tracking things that, when you start talking about some of the more gray areas that just don't work into the calories in, calories out part of the equation, it can kind of be easy to justify, well, a calorie is just a calorie. And then that goes even a little bit further that the timing of that calorie probably doesn't really matter because, again, it's just thermodynamics. A calorie is a calorie. So what does it matter if it's at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m.? Why should that matter? And then also just the fact that, I was kind of living a busy lifestyle and took pride in getting more things done. And I didn't really want to have a justifiable reason to not, to get less things done. That just wasn't part of my self-image. So I kind of just, pushed away that part of like the logic part of the equation. But understanding full circle in my 40s, how much getting sleep right and getting it better, like much better than it was in my 20s and significantly still better than in my 30s.
Heck, even after we've known each other for how many years now? Even after
6 years, maybe?
7 years?
Yeah.
Even now, it's completely different. There's no more of those me and you up late night in the fasting funnel, sending emails at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., working on projects. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. So even just in the last few years, I've noticed a big difference.
Yeah, and so that's a matter of boundaries, personal standards, self-image also, but then also going like I understand how critical those things are and that sleep hygiene essentially, and it starts way before it's time to go into sleep mode. Obviously, like way before that during the day, but those things are so important, and the way you feel every single day waking up is like stringing together either you're feeling good and your body's working well, or you're feeling the opposite and your body's working poorly. And so each one of those day to day, like it kind of becomes a string.
Cycles.
Yeah, cycles, day to day cycles, and they all matter. They all add up. And then seeing that data like within the wearables, that's really been super impactful as well. And because then I can start correlating that with, okay, what's my blood sugar doing? What's the scale doing? How easy or difficult does my fasting lifestyle feel today, or in a given week after a given week of different seasons, different weeks. I have a newborn at this point, which
Right.
is its whole which is a whole new set of craziness as far as circadian
Hold
rhythm,
on to your
right?
bootstraps for the first 12 months, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's crazy, and it's been a while since we had a newborn in the house, and so protecting sleep is that much more important, as much as it can be.
Yep.
Rather than just kind of throwing my hands up and going, oh well, sleep's going to suck for a while. It's still a priority, even if the quantity and the quality are lower than I would like. It's still the importance remains the same, right?
Yep. So this idea of the circadian rhythm, let's unpack it just a little bit. The circadian rhythm is your internal clock. It impacts everything from weight loss to energy to what you were just talking about. And a fasting lifestyle, consistency in a fasting lifestyle, can help you reset the clock for metabolic wellness and weight loss. So a lot of people come to fasting for weight loss, but there's so many more metabolic benefits that you can get. And it immediately stacks the deck in your favor. Your hunger cues and fasting changes food and your decision-making process and the person you become through it. So really incredible. The circadian rhythm itself is your body's 24-hour clock, and it influences sleep, like you mentioned, but also your hormones, your metabolism, and your hunger cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's directly connected to three main things: your sunlight exposure, light exposure, food timing, right? Yep. And your daily routines, where you were just talking about your sleep cycle. Because the circadian rhythm will impact hormone releases like insulin, which manages your blood sugar, and cortisol, which is your stress response, right? Your sleep-wake cycle. It's going to affect your blood sugar regulation and energy use, and very important in a weight loss journey, your fat storage versus your fat burning capability.
Yep.
So when we're looking at the circadian system and how it relates specifically to glucose, let's talk first about the actual circadian clock overall. So you have a wake and a sleep cycle, right? And typically here in the central US, outside of Houston, we have a good balance, and it's not like growing up in New England where, heck, in the winter, it was getting dark. The sun was like setting at like 3:30. I can't imagine living in Canada or Alaska where that light cycle is even shrunk more, or you live in an area where it's light all the time for multiple weeks on end. Yeah. But in the general sense, here in Texas, and for most of us that don't live in those higher or lower latitudes, latitudes, I never know which is which.
Yeah.
Geography wasn't my strong suit. I'll take science for 500, Alex. So when we're looking at the circadian, we've got a wake and a sleep. And during the wake cycle, you have better sympathetic tone, better glucose metabolism, better glucose tolerance, better hormonal signaling throughout the body. So you've got more muscle growth, you've got fat burning. You have your liver doing what it's supposed to do in terms of creating digestive enzymes and bile, and it decreases cholesterol synthesis and increases your pancreas's effectiveness with insulin. And when you're sleeping, when it's dark and you're getting ready to go to sleep, we're going to talk about these daily routines. You've got melatonin and growth hormone that come up, and you've got your glucose capability that actually goes down. Mm-hmm. And your glucose how do I say this? The ability of your body to process glucose properly goes up. You've got muscle growth, you've got fat catabolism, you've got leptin secretion, so that's your hunger cues. So I'm just connecting some of those big picture hormonal connections to blood sugar and to hunger cues and those types of things. Because I don't know about you, but I've overindulged and gone to bed and slept like crap and woken up the next day, and fasting's a lot more difficult. So
sure. Yeah.
Your liver's functioning better, your pancreas is producing glucagon. So all of these things, but when you're in circadian misalignment, you're going to get sleep deprivation, poor quality of sleep, and you're going to have increased insulin resistance and decreased insulin secretion or sensitivity. Mm-hmm. So this can happen with poor sleep cycles, poor quality of sleep, shift work, a higher fat, higher carbohydrate diet. They're all related. So we can't have one without the other. This is why our tune has changed recently, Tommy, when it comes to our fasting timing, right? Because if we did thousands of polls and messages early on, and everybody chose OMAD dinner as their preferred meal. It makes sense. Yep. Breakfast is busy. It's crazy, especially in your house right now with a newborn. In my house with 3 kids under 3, wife has a practice, multiple businesses. Like it's chaos. So it's easy just to skip breakfast and then eat dinner. But what we found is there's some metabolic things that take place, and the protection of good quality sleep is going to make the following day, to your point earlier about cycles, that much easier. So we've shifted our tune to getting most of your calories in and your larger meals in earlier in the day. And we've seen this inside of coaching where this is where people will break through plateaus and break through hunger and break through imbalanced food relationships and all these different types of things. So when we're looking at this, the circadian system specifically connected to glucose metabolism, it's a 24-hour cycle, right? Light exposure comes into play. But we know now that eating the same meal at 8 a.m. versus 8 p.m., you have a 30% decrease in your body's ability to process that food or that glucose that's broken down from the food, or if there's sugar in the food or alcohol or carbohydrates. It's going to have a 30% less effectiveness eating that meal at 8 p.m. versus 8 a.m.
That's a problem.
And we know this with diabetes research.
Yep.
Right? That sleep deprivation or lack of quality sleep with diabetics is your glucose tolerance and insulin sensitivity are going to go down and get worse. So you're going to proliferate the potential to get on to the prediabetes, diabetes, metabolic dysfunction track by not focusing on quality fasting schedules and really making sure that you're tapping into the circadian biology the best you can.
Yeah, there is mounting research that shows distinctly that regardless of body weight and body mass index, the risk for type 2 diabetes and the actual development and progression of the disease happens just based on lack of following the circadian rhythm. So when we're talking about meal timing, when we take our calories and shift them later on in the day, and then you're going against the natural blood sugar and insulin response rhythm within the body, and then that's enough to push up the risk and the development of metabolic syndrome. Well, so starting off as basically glucose dysregulation and insulin dysregulation, and then into metabolic syndrome, prediabetes, and then into diabetes. You accelerate that progression just by going against the circadian rhythm without adding in additional calories necessarily or additional weight on the scale even. So this is independent of weight, which is should be flooring to anybody who, especially I'm talking to my former self here, who was looking at things like calories in, calories out, but not with respect to circadian biology right there.
Yeah, and we've seen this when we look at caloric distribution across meals.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of studies. There was a randomized controlled trial. Overweight women who ate 70% of their calories before noon lost 0.6 kilograms more over a 6-week period than their late eating counterparts who ate 70% of their daily calories after mid-afternoon.
Right.
There was another study, 20-week study, 420 participants. Those who ate lunch before 3 p.m. lost 2% more of their baseline body weight than those who ate lunch after 3 p.m. Excuse me. So there's other studies in 2-3-month random control trials in obese women with PCOS reported better glucose tolerance when participants ate 50 to 55% of their calories at breakfast rather than at dinner time.
Yeah. And you could see that on your continuous glucose monitor too. I've taken the same meals and just shifted time-wise, and you can see the area under the curve, how long it takes to recover from those spikes, and then the magnitude of those spikes is vastly different from an early meal to a late meal. And that's one of the things where coming in as a just starting off fasting, and you mentioned this earlier in the conversation, just those natural kind of boundaries that occur, you can have a lot more wiggle room at the beginning because you're you might be changing habits kind of drastically because you're just on the weight regain or the weight gain cycle, and then all of a sudden you start deliberately fasting. It doesn't have to be ultra long fasts or anything. Like, you don't have to be making perfect food choices either, and you can be seeing some real quick success on the scale. And one of the reasons is because if you were in the habit of having like late night snacks, especially, then just that compartmentalization, we don't typically set an eating window that includes the late hours into late night snacking. So just a little bit of compliance with that time restricted eating means that during the worst time of day for you to be ingesting calories and having an insulin and a blood sugar response, which are those late night times later in the day, that just undoing that as a habit or putting a natural boundary on that, so it's much less likely to happen, or maybe it's just not happening at all anymore, can be enough to really start moving the scale, regardless of a caloric deficit or any other changes.
Yeah, and this Courtney Peterson, a PhD, she's an associate professor in the Department of Nutrition Sciences at University of Alabama at Birmingham. She said that what this and other research tells us for people who don't have diabetes or blood sugar or diagnosed like a metabolic issue, they will almost see their best blood sugar control around mid-morning. It's actually pretty good from about 5 a.m., but peaks to about 4 hours later. That's our body's natural wake up, right? So cortisol, norepinephrine, they wake us up. The body dumps blood sugar into the bloodstream. That's why for a standard medical practice is to test your morning fasted blood sugar to see what your body's doing overnight. And then what'll happen, she said, is they'll watch their glucose levels start to get less good by lunchtime and increasingly worse as the day goes on. So there's a study in 2019 review in the Journal of Nature Reviews Endocrinology, and it said the central clock regulates food intake, energy expenditure, and whole body glucose metabolism and insulin sensitivity. And this lives in your hypothalamus, excuse me. So when you look at this, I don't know about you, but I know that for years, and even every now and then when sleep is bad and stress is high, that my worst time when I don't stick to the fasting schedule or I have the salty, sweet, savory cravings, it's always after dinner.
Oh, okay.
Always. So if you're not aware, and if you look at like circadian disruptors, right, the central clock disruptors, there's three main factors. There's light exposure, so getting too much at night. This is the blue light. This is why I wear the yellow glasses, because I stare at screens. My nighttime filters are permanently on my screens at all times. I've got a red light blocking, a blue light blocking, because I beat the heck out of iPhones. I got a blue light blocking glass protector. You know those glass things that you put on the screen?
Yeah.
I've got one of those. Because I know the light exposure we have, and I want to share your story about what you did working in the kitchen the other night in just a minute. But it's light exposure, so getting too much at night and not enough during the day. Irregular sleep schedules, right? So either due to social stuff, family stuff, jet lag, shift work. And the third category is this category we've talked about already, is this late night eating, right? So if these are things that you might be doing, don't worry, you're not alone. Because many of us are spending our days indoors at work, exposed to artificial light rather than more natural friendly light. And our evenings and mornings are packed with the busyness of the day, the busyness of life, right?
Yeah.
So when we're looking at this, these are the three main categories that now the research is showing that are the main disruptors in the blood sugar mismanagement, which leads to prediabetes, diabetes, and comorbidities and cardiometabolic disease and insulin-resistant type issues, which we know 8 of the top 10 reasons for all-cause mortality are related in some way back to the insulin mechanism, the blood sugar mechanism.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I like to distinguish the fact that, like, for me and my like health journey and healthy lifestyle, or sometimes lack thereof, but I always had it as a goal of mine. A lot of times, certain objectives get they kind of get intertwined. They kind of get commingled with each other, and this might involve like going to the gym or only being diligent with your exercise when you feel like your eating has been more or less on track. And so then the trouble is that if one goes, they both go. And so that's really that's tricky, because then you're really letting go of a whole set of goals just because you feel like one kind of fuels the motivation of the other. It can be the same thing with sleep hygiene or circadian rhythm biology. But if you think about it, and your long-term goals, objectively, we should be behaving in the exact opposite way, which is that, hey, if right now is a really busy time for you and you can't seem to get a hold of really good sleep, and you're just kind of fighting for whatever sleep you can get, or maybe, hey, this is shift work, you're a shift worker, and it's always going to be kind of a perpetual thing that you're always kind of struggling with or kind of trying to optimize. Well, then guess what? You had better take a hold of the other things that you can control, because otherwise you're going to regret it, and all of the goals are kind of gonna go by the wayside. You're gonna feel much worse. Your body's gonna be performing much worse. Your brain health is gonna be much worse. Whereas it could have just been one of the big levers that was suffering. It didn't have to be two or all three of them, right? It's a matter of taking control and controlling what you can control. Again, kind of preaching to a previous version of myself,
right?
But this is really important, and I feel like it's something that doesn't really get discussed enough.
Yeah, and so this is where fasting comes in as a tool to realign your clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, fasting supports gene expression that benefits metabolism. It triggers metabolic repair and cellular cleanup. It helps the gut. It helps cravings and hunger. It gives the gut a break to allow it to balance, which we know is directly related to promoting healthy circadian patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So just think about this fasting freelancer, moving the times, moving the windows, starting a fast and stopping it early, or this like chaotic grazing type. These are the fasting types: a weekend warrior, a fasting freelancer, or a gratuitous grazer. That versus consistent fasting, the latter, the fasting, the time restricted eating, that shifts your system from a fed state and chaos to more metabolic stability. So we want to be focusing on consistent fasting and aligning your eating windows that allow you to protect your sleep, get good quality nutrition in during the day, and align that with the circadian clock as well.
Yeah.
So specifically with light exposure, there was a study of 100,000 women. Exposure to light while sleeping was strongly associated with a higher BMI, a higher waist circumference, and a higher waist to hip ratio. This is stuff that we talk about, not the number on the scale, but what is the visceral adiposity, right? So
what's your fat distribution look like?
Yeah, for men, it's the belly. For women, it's the lower abdomen and hips and thighs.
Mm-hmm.
So higher BMI, waist circumference directly related to insulin resistance, right? So greater than 35 for women, 40 for men. And the waist to hip ratio. These are direct correlations to that visceral metabolic fat that we talked at length about on multiple episodes over the years. Mm-hmm. And this is just the exposure to light while sleeping. So we got a dark, cold room, non-negotiable. If you want some more insights into what we do to protect it, we created the sleep guide. You can click the link in the show notes. It's free. It's a little six section infograph. Mm-hmm. But there was other research that found that increased exposure to light late in the evening is associated with increases in insulin resistance and glucose levels, and linking it to a 51% increase in diabetes in elderly subjects.
Wow.
So it's not just the exposure to light late at night, but it's also the fact that we need to get light during the day. Dr. Huberman did an entire series of podcasts on this, where he's like, get up, see the morning sunlight, 10 to 15 minutes, even if it's cloudy out, go out. That's going to start the melatonin cycle, the sleep cycle, the circadian cycle. So when you go to bed that night, you're going to have proper production of melatonin, which is going to help you to sleep. Mm-hmm. So get early morning sunlight, get dust sunlight. We live inside. Put your blue light blockers on, right? Mm-hmm. So there was another study that showed obese women to bright light therapy, which in exposure equivalent to being outdoors on a cloudy day, 3 times a week for 5 months, they found a significant reduction in subjects' insulin resistance. Wow. 3 times a week. Not even every day.
Yeah, that's very doable. It's actionable.
Yep. So increase the healthy light, decrease. So meals, no, 2 to 3 hours before bed. Don't eat. Right? Light, I shut the blue light, the phone off, hour before bed. You got to give your body the ability to kind of to have a morning and an evening routine to set yourself up for success. Go ahead, Tommy.
So that's like boundary wise, thinking of some of the soft boundaries that you have control over, and automating some of those too. So take advantage of, most phones these days have settings that you can kick in automatically. So don't leave it up to yourself, because that's just more freelancing kind of in the moment. Don't leave it up to you to, oh man, I always forget to, turn on the night shift mode. No, just set it on your phone to come on at a certain time. You take control of some of those variables. Your sleep cycle is unlikely to look the exact same every single day, but it can look 90% similar within like a bit of a time range. Maybe there's some variables, maybe there's some young children or other things, or maybe there's pets and other things that can kind of throw a wrench in things sometimes. But at the same time, when you have little things that lead to habits, and as far as a routine, especially the late night or getting into the sleep cycle, those are really, really important to kind of compartmentalize and then lead to better sleep habits and sleep hygiene. And you mentioned what I did the other night. What you're referring to there was, I had my kind of home office set up by the kitchen the other day, and it was starting to get into the later hours, and I was fasting through. That was a burn day for me, and feeling good, just kind of cruising through it, no big deal. And then here comes about 6, 7 o'clock, and I was really starting to feel like hunger pangs were kind of starting to kick up. But more importantly, I think was like food noise. It was like food thoughts. Hey, pantry's nearby, fridge is nearby. What's going on in there? And then it was also just time of day. So these are like, cephalic phase of hunger, the environmental context clues. It's just like, hey, this is just a time of day. This is a circadian rhythm kind of thing. And so what I did was I realized, well, I'm not going to move around all my stuff right now. I'd rather not do that. I kind of had a complicated setup right then. So I just ended up turning off some of the lights like leading into the kitchen. Yep. So it was kind of an out of sight, out of mind. So again, just a soft boundary that really, really helped. Like food noise came down just immediately, and I turned on a few other lights in a different part of the house. So just visually, it was kind of just tricking my my visual system in order to kind of just focus on things away from the kitchen. And it sounds simple, and I never tried that in the past, but it worked really nicely, kind of like in a pinch. And then what I said to myself was also, if it continues, I'm just going to move the whole station. But let me see if a smaller action is going to help right now. And luckily it did.
And why do we keep saying the word sleep and cycle and all that? It's because we know that it's connected to metabolic dysfunction, and it also makes fasting more difficult.
It does.
Right. Let's talk about with some clear kind of boundaries here. The second one. So we talked about light exposure, natural light versus artificial light. We switched to get rid of the LED light bulbs. So at night, we've got a couple of lamps and little candles that we turn on, these little like clickable candles, you can buy like a 5-pack of.
Yeah.
That don't have the LED blue light in them. And in our bedroom, we have those lights. And in the kids' rooms, we have the red light night lights. So we don't have the blue light, the white light, messing with their sleep patterns. But when we're talking about sleep, there's a couple of caveats here. Irregular sleep can mean not getting enough sleep, so really less than like 6.5 to 7 hours. Staying up past your usual bedtime and sleeping later than normal. We can categorize this as like social or life jet lag. Mm-hmm. Or if you're a shift worker, sleeping during the day and working during the night. You're introducing these little micro circadian misalignments that's confusing your system of like where you're at during the day. This is going to directly relate to your blood sugar and your metabolic function. And it found that there was a study that showed people 60 years or younger with social jet lag of greater than 1 hour, meaning going to bed an hour later or sleeping in an hour later, meaning the difference in time between when you usually go to bed and when you do or do not on your days off if you're a shift worker. Yeah. That's about 69% of the population. You have 1.4 times the prevalence of prediabetes or diabetes compared to with people that have that shift, that variance in when to go to bed or when to wake up. With the people that have less than 1 hour of variance, you have a 1.4 times the prevalence just by that 1 hour shift. It's crazy, right? So you're doing fasting right. You're sticking your eating windows, but you're still struggling with the hunger and the scale moving consistently, this is some of the things, we're getting into the minutia, but these are some of the things that you can do, some levers that you can pull that are small, evening routine, morning routine, because these irregular sleep patterns, again, directly linked to poor glucose control and insulin resistance. So you're going to have reduced insulin sensitivity of your fat cells. We don't want that. You're going to have a disrupted nutrient balance. That came out of the 2019 review in of the Journal of Nature Reviews of Endocrinology. We don't want a disrupted nutrient balance. Food is fuel, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to have hormonal effects. So you're going to have shifts in your cortisol, which is your body's stress response, which cortisol over long periods of time, guess what? It has a similar effect or mimics, in a way, insulin resistance or even contributing to insulin resistance.
Yeah.
So putting some soft boundaries, don't expect it to change overnight. I have a Whoop. I've had it for years. I'm still working on my sleep. Still to this day, after years of wearing it as a badge of honor, I'm still working on it, still working on the phone, still working on the blue light. It's a work in progress. But the third category, Tommy, is this late night eating, right? And we've talked about this at length on other episodes, so we'll just go over it briefly. But it's the lack of consistency or the pushing the window later into the evening. We know that your body should be producing melatonin at that time. But really what's going to happen is it's going to decrease your body's ability to process the energy that you're bringing in effectively, especially if you already have insulin resistance. So eating the meals earlier, having an earlier dinner, and then making sure you're not eating that 2 to 3 hours before bed.
Yeah, because if when food comes in within that kind of, let's call it a protected window or should be a protected window, what happens is the blood sugar can't be properly processed. You don't have the time to burn through it, but then your body's not set up physiologically to actually do anything with it either. And so then you're not having the same insulin response. Your body doesn't want to push out insulin at that time during the day. And the amount that it does end up pushing out isn't as effective because the insulin sensitivity within the rest of your cells in your body has decreased substantially over the hours of the day. So you're getting less of an insulin effect, and it's less effective for what you are getting too. And so this is all problematic because what ends up essentially happening is your body kind of pauses the processing of all of whatever you took in during that time until tomorrow. And tomorrow, when it's processing it after your sleep cycle, it's less effective than it would have been yesterday also.
Yep.
And so then because what happened was that food and the pausing of those digestive processes that should have been happening actually lead to a worsening, a decreased efficiency of your sleep that night, which then leads to your increased insulin resistance the following day too. And you still have that job from last night that you haven't completed, but you're not as well prepared to do it the next day. And so this is a compounding problem then. And then that right there, where you're set up with a higher blood sugar going into the next morning, then that's going to lead to an eventual come down or potentially a crash later on in that day that's then going to send some very, very strong, hard to ignore hormonal and hunger pang, like physical, mechanical hunger signals to your body and brain that day too. So if you were planning for a burn day or planning for let's say it was a lunch OMAD or an early dinner OMAD, it's going to be harder to wait for that given window. And then it's also going to be hard to close that window too, or just have the meal without anything after the meal. So then the compound effects start happening. And then you're even more likely to have a later snack or a later meal the next day too, which then is going to perpetuate the cycle. And then you have, it can be very, very difficult to kind of regain traction like that, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So let's wrap up with a couple of key action steps, levers you can pull. So eat your meals during the day. Follow the sun. Don't eat late at night, right? Put a barrier. Move your nighttime dinner earlier, right? Switch it up. Try a breakfast OMAD instead of a dinner OMAD, right? But try to make those meal times consistent, right? So if you're going to adapt a fasting schedule, this is one of the things we hear often is like, oh, what's the best fasting schedule? Well, the one you can stick to.
Sure.
Because consistency wins, right? So try to make those meal times consistent. Give yourself a week to 2 weeks to really see the changes. And keep a regular sleep schedule. This is something that I am preaching to myself on this one because I struggle with this hard, right? So keep a regular sleep schedule, even on your days off. And Dr. Brian Walker did a 6-part interview series with Dr. Huberman. It was like 18 or 20 hours long, where he really talks about control the controllable. One of the biggest factors is dark rooms, cold rooms, and then a consistent sleep and wake time. My wife is incredible at this. No matter what the day or what happened the night before, she gets up at the same time every day. Then you can get outdoors for at least an hour every day. So I do what I call my hot girl walks here in Texas in the summer. Mm-hmm. Shirt off, outside, AirPods in, and boom, put on a podcast, and I go for a walk 30 minutes a day in the middle of the day. Nice. I make sure in the morning, before the kids get up and the house wakes up, I get outside, take the dogs out, let them sniff around, do their thing. I take my glasses off so I can't see a damn thing. But I know that I'm getting in that proper signaling for the circadian rhythm, so I can, because I've struggled with sleep for years, so I can have a proper sleep cycle. The days that I do this versus the days that I don't, I notice that my hunger cues immediately are different.
Wow.
Right? And then establish a curfew on late night light. Figure out something that works for you. We do red light as a family every night. My little guy, we do it for he used to have really bad eczema. He doesn't anymore. We've been working really hard over the last couple of years to heal his body and figure out what the cause was, and it's been great. But it's created a routine now where we go sit in the room, turn the red light on, and we all get red light into our eyeballs before bed. So you may not be able to change all the light bulbs in your house, right? Because your spouse or family are going to think you're crazy. But establish a curfew on late night light. And this is something I still struggle with, is grabbing my phone in the middle of the night when I wake up. Try not to do it. It's going to create circadian confusion. Right? So don't doom scroll. Okay?
Yeah, right.
Because it's just going to mess it up. So we know that blue light can impair glucose tolerance. Right? I've seen pre and post graphs of people that you wake up in the middle of the night, you grab your phone, your blood sugar rises. Your body's like, hey, I'm awake.
Yeah, a little stress response. Yeah.
You're like, wait a minute, I should be sleeping, right? So definitely coming from a place of experience here. But fasting and circadian rhythms work together for better weight loss and energy, better metabolic function. And really I want to encourage you is go grab the Fasting for Life journal in the show notes. And just for a week, journal when you eat, when you fast, your sleep quality, and your energy levels.
Okay.
Do it for a week, and I think you're going to see some really cool kind of insights that come out of it. Because you value what you measure what you value.
Yeah, because it's really easy to forget what happened last night or 2 nights ago, 3 nights ago. I mean, you have a real short memory for these kind of things. But jotting down, even just taking 2 or 3 minutes, jotting down a couple of notes means that you can flip back and have an objective, like trail of breadcrumbs that you kind of follow. Hey, when I did this seemed to work. Next day was easier. Oh, hey, look, that fasting time was a little bit longer. Hey, what happened on the scale? Guess what? It probably went down, or at least stayed the same. It wasn't one of those tick ups, on the next morning. So a little bit of, success leaves clues. So let's see what you're doing right. And then also it can highlight where you have room for improvement too, which is great too. And I think doing that, pairing that up with just a couple of little things where you just put in, just a little bit more with just 1 or 2 little boundaries right here that maybe you didn't have last night or didn't have before listening to this episode can go a long way. Because remember, as I stressed earlier in the episode, don't kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. Rather than doing that, remember that each little small decision leads to another action, another bit of feedback for you, which is then motivating and tends to contribute to your long-term results. So you don't have to be doing everything right to make big progress over the longer term.
Absolutely. And I want to encourage y'all to just compassionate experiment, right? So you don't need to be perfect, but syncing fasting with your body's natural rhythm, honestly, it just feels better. So it's both science-backed and it's a sustainable way to get you off that dieting roller coaster and get you some consistent fasting results. So if you want to grab a couple of the resources we mentioned today, you can head to the show notes. We've got the sleep guide. We've got the Fasting for Life journal. We got the blueprint to fasting for fat loss. We got an upcoming challenge if you want to do an accelerated version of what it is that we teach and how we help folks attain a fasting lifestyle, lose the weight once and for all.
Heck yeah.
and truly get the results that you've been looking for and get you off that dieting roller coaster. So Tommy, as always, man, I appreciate the conversation, and we will talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.
So, you've heard today's episode, and you may be wondering, where do I start? Head on over to thefastingforlife.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive fasting tips and strategies to maximize results and fit fasting into your day-to-day life.
While you're there, download your free Fast Start guide to get started today. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Fasting for Life.